Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Unit 2.3. In this unit, we will discuss the CPU components and how they communicate with each other. Inside a CPU, there are so many units that have dedicated purpose that what they will do. First of all, the main functioning unit are the arithmetic logic unit and floating point units. What they do is they perform mathematical operations on the data that we provided to. Okay? Any automatic operation, any logical operation that needs to be performed on the data will be carried out by the ALU or arithmetic logical unit. And same thing will be done by the floating point unit. The only difference is that floating point unit can perform the same operation on the data if the data is in decimal points. Okay. For example, a number is 2.03. I want to multiply it by 2. It will be fed to the FPU, not ALU. If I want to multiply 2 by 5, okay, there is no decimal. So it will be fed to the arithmetical logical unit or ALU. Now there is a control unit which controls that how the data is to be carried out, when to transfer data to any other unit, when the processing is done, how to achieve the results, and when to send the results to the display device. Okay, so control unit control all these devices and flow of data. Prefetch unit, what it does, that it need to know that after the execution is done from the current data, what type of data is needed for the next instruction. So what it will do, it will fetch that information from the memory and store it in the prefetch unit before the instruction is to be processed. So whenever ALU or whenever FPU or whenever control unit require that information, it can provide that information without the needing to go back to the memory. Okay. Decode unit, what it does, that it translates from one form to another form. Doesn't matter either it is a data, doesn't matter either it is an instruction. It can translate from one form to another depending on the requirement. Okay. Internal caches and registers, these are the memory devices of a CPU in which it stores some information, it stores some data. We have already seen cache, that what a cache is and why it is used. And registers are the smaller type of memory that CPU needs when it is performing some operations. Okay. For example, it needs to multiply 2 with some number, but it has to keep multiplying that number 5 to 6 times. Now it can only perform an operation one time. For example, 2 multiplied by 3, it can do only that. Then whenever that result comes, for example 2 multiplied by 3 is 6, it will store that 6 into some register. Then it will fetch the other number that needs to be multiplied by 6. Okay, so this is how registers are used in a CPU. Okay, bus interface, I forgot that. Bus interface is the let me show you where is the bus. This is the bus. Bus is nothing but a combination of wires that are connected between different types of computers, different types of devices of a computer. For example, it is the interface between a CPU and a memory, for example RAM, or any other device on the motherboard. So a data can be transferred from one place to another, or one device to another device. Okay, we have already seen that how speed is measured in hertz. Okay, so a single instruction is processed in a split of a second. So what we do, that we represent that that amount of time that it takes to process one instruction as the machine cycle. So one machine cycle is the amount of time that it needs to process one information or carry out one instruction. Okay. So for example, this example is given here. There is a CPU of 2 gigahertz. The CPU clock ticks 10 times during each clock ticks. Sorry. Okay, what does this mean? That if a CPU has the speed of 2 gigahertz, then it will carry out 2 to the power 9 instructions in 1 second. Okay, okay. So CPU clock is nothing but the processing of information, that how many instruction can be processed at a single time. Now we have machine cycle. A single machine cycle consists of four things. Although each and everything will be processed, will be carried out in a single amount of time. But what we can do, we can use parallel processing to carry out all of the things at the same time. We will see it in the later slide. First, let's see what is a machine cycle. So machine cycle has four different states. First is the fetch. What it will do, that it will fetch some instruction or fetch some data that needs to be processed. Okay. Then the decode unit comes. What it will do, that the instruction that are fetched, it will decode those units, or it will translate those instruction into something that can be fed to different parts of the CPU. For example, AU and FPU. Then what will happen, that these parts or AU or FPU will execute those instructions. Whatever we have instructed them to do, they will perform that operation. Obviously, that instruction that when performed will produce some output. So that output will be stored in some parts of the memory, for example, a cache or some registers of the memory. Okay, so this is a complete machine cycle, and it will repeat itself after the last part. For example, it will first do the fetch, then decode, execute, store. Then will it repeat itself. Then it will go to the fetch cycle again. Okay, so this is the representation of how a machine cycle can be processed at a single time, but all of those components will be carried out by the CPU. For example, if a fetch unit is fetching some instruction at some time, then at the same time the control unit, let me go to the back slide so it can be I can teach you that much more easy. So when the fetch unit is fetching some information from memory, at the same time the decode unit, what it will be using, it will be decoding the data that the fetch has already fetched previously. Okay, so it can be executed at some later time. And when these two devices, fetch and decode cycles, were going on at the same time, the execute unit were also executing some instruction that has been fed it in the previous cycle by the decode. Okay, so there is a continuous process, and they are doing all these things in parallel. Okay, so that is the last slide of our unit. Thank you very much.